Are you okay with the camera and everything? Check, 1, 2. Hello and welcome to Stockholm Hardware number 20. Today it is Hardware in 2019 is the theme of tonight. Thanks for coming. Here is some photos of the lineup for tonight. As usual, I'm impressed by the people who takes time to come here and present. And of course, to you as well, who actually takes time to come and listen. I thought I would start with just doing a quick bit of going through the schedule. This is you, Mark. Oh, right. Perfect. Yes, so how many went to the Makerspace tour that we did before the event? 3, 4, 5 or 6, yes. Great, thanks Andreas, and we'll do another Makerspace tour after the event, so if any of you are interested in that, then when we are done with the talks, there's another tour. Makerspace is in the basement, if you haven't been here before. I'll say a few welcome words, a bit of introductions. Some logistics, then we have some time for community announcements. We try to ensure that everybody in the community can share with each other. So a few of you have let me know in advance that you'd like to take a minute to come on stage, present some information. If any of you are interested in coming up for a minute, just line up and you'll just be next in line. Could be something you're working on or something you'd like to call out. Then we have our 2 keynotes are around, I guess it is first-hand impressions from CES earlier in January. So those 2 keynotes are before our break. Scroll. Yes. And then we'll do a short break. If some of you have been here in the past, you may have noticed that we had a longer break. Today we'll keep it shorter, just 15 minutes. And then instead of doing the Makerspace tour in the break, we're going to do it afterwards. Then after the break, we have 2 new segments, or 2 new kind of speaker slots that we'd like to do on a recurring basis. First one is Women in Hardware, where we have the 2 founders of Imagilabs or Imagicase coming up and presenting both what they do, but also talk about the journey that got them there, perhaps also some reflections on diversity. Then Ricard will come and talk about Labtrino. A new thing that we're trying to do is emphasize or kind of focus in on a startup every month. We call it Hardware Startup of the Month, and this month is Labtrino. Then we have a few lightning talks. 2 are set up ahead of time. 3D printing in 2019, so some forecast or thoughts about that. And a lightning talk on how to build an open source router in 5 minutes. If some of you would like to do a talk or a demo for 5 minutes today, then just come see one of us. One of the organizers. I'll show you a photo in a moment. And then you can be part of the lineup. Then, no problem. Then we'll do a wrap up. I'll run a quick survey to get a bit of feedback from you. Your feedback is, of course, very important for us to determine what content we should focus on for the year. As mentioned, we'll do a Makerspace tour afterwards, and we'd love for you to meet each other So if you're looking for somebody and you don't know who specifically you're looking for, come see one of the organizers and we'll see if we can make some introductions for you. Okay, so that was, ooh, interesting. I don't even recall what I was talking about next. But anyway, that was the schedule for the day. It was coming. 1.5. Well, just a bit of intro to that one. We'll skip. Okay. SthlmHW, just a brief note. We are a group of volunteers, and we are trying to build a stronger hardware community for all of us, whether you are already in the hardware community, whether you're curious about it on the business side, design side, engineering side, and so on. It's not only for business, it's for artists and so on. Not for profit. This year is 3 years. We've done 20 meetups. We've done 2 workshops last year, and I think we have 2 more workshops coming during the first half of this year. I'll share some more info later. Then this was new, and I want to make sure to say thanks. For this meetup, this is actually the first time that you have to specifically get a ticket on the confetti site, so thanks for doing that, which essentially helps us ensure that we are not too many people, but also that we are the right amount of people. So that's why we have tickets. And we also have encouraged you to pay for the tickets as a way to contribute to the community. So there's a few different ways of paying, different ticket prices, including a free one, because it is important for us that everybody can be part of the community. So thanks for contributing, whether you're contributing by paying for the ticket or you're contributing by adding to the community in some other way. Here was the how it turned out. 85 tickets, including the speaker tickets. 35 of those were paid tickets, and around 3,000 in revenue came in. So this money is something that we use to run more events with. So thanks for that. Here are the organizers. We have a new group of organizers this season. So these are the people that help put up the events. Lars and Ted, you may recall from last season. Then we have Susan, Sarah, and Stina as new co-organizers this season. Maybe you could just, if you're here, Ted, you're here, and if you're here, co-organizers, just wave your hand. Go see them if you have some questions or you're looking for introductions, then go find them. Food and drinks. We don't serve food anymore, but we do have drinks. There's some beer down there, non-alcoholic, water, and coffee. We have bathrooms just out there, and there's some extra bathrooms in the basement. Thanks to Mark for running camera and video production. We are recording all the talks, so they are on SthlmHW.se and on YouTube, all the previous talks, if you're interested in catching up on those. Things is this building that you're in. It's a co-working space for hardware startups. They are a sponsor or a partner. Invest in Stockholm is a partner, and so is M.New. So these are the 3 businesses that are supporting us in making these events happen. That was all I had to say for introductions. The 2 keynotes are from Håkan and Ted. And I think, Ted, you're going to go first?
Sure.
Yes?
You said community announcements before.
Oh, yes, that's right. No, you're right. We do community announcements first. Marie? Yes, welcome, Marie. Please welcome Marie to the stage.
I'll just wait 1 second for my presentation to come up. Yeah. Do I have a clicker?
No, one clicker for you.
Thank you. All right. So my name is Mary Claire Maxwell, and I have been associated to this place, I think, more or less from the start, with a very strong passion for Hong Kong and Shenzhen being the reason why, I would like to say. I also was one of the organizers of a maker tour 4 years ago, which I think was the first Maker IoT trip from Sweden to Shenzhen. So since then, we also managed to get one of the partners from Hacks on stage here. And we have done, or I've done what I could to really try and connect Sweden with the Shenzhen and Greater Bay Area. Since a year, I was hijacked by Business Sweden, which is it's run by the Swedish government and also the Swedish näringsliv to support Swedish companies growing abroad and also to attract investments to Sweden. It was a little bit like joining the dark side, but instead of just helping 4 or 5 companies by myself, I really got the opportunity to open up doors for so many more people. So one of the first things we did was going with Prince Carl Philip to Hong Kong with RISE and the Swedish EdTech industry. And very, very cool event that resulted in that we are going to work on a IoT accelerator that I think will launch later on this year with support from RISE and Vinnova. So I'll keep you updated about that. Some friends here in the audience joined me to Japan, and which was another event we did this year. But one of the most important things was launching 2 Nordic innovation houses in Asia. One in Singapore, supporting Southeast Asia, and then one in Hong Kong for Greater Bay. So this place in Greater Bay is really open already for you guys if you need a lounge or you want to connect with investors or other friends down there. We have 2 events coming up this year. One of your partners, Stina and I, are working very closely on the Swedish startup delegation to Hannover. And quite a few of the members from here and from SthlmHW and others are joining. Another one is in Vietnam. It's more focused on e-commerce, but for those of you who are looking for coders, this is a place where you might want to source people in the future. So just very, very briefly about the 2 houses that we have in Asia now, Hong Kong and Singapore. It's really for scaling the best of the Nordic companies, so many of you guys here. For those of you who don't know so much about this area, I would really strongly recommend you go into the website of the Nordic Innovation House and read up about what's cooking and happening in Greater Bay. The themes for this year, IoT together with RISE, health tech, med tech, working closely with Hacks and Brink and Seed. I'm sure you know quite a few of these companies and hubs in the region already. For Singapore, it's perhaps not so much for you guys, but it's also very important to know what's happening in Southeast Asia, I would say. So slightly different topics. Maybe around the health tech could be interesting for you, and also smart cities. But we will, if you follow these hubs and houses on social media, you'll see when there'll be delegations or big events or so coming up. They offer working space, but it's mainly about community and network on site, connect you to investors, or just in general, be guides locally. So there are different types of memberships. It's not that expensive, and if you just want to check it out in the beginning, just make sure to swing by if you are in Hong Kong or in Singapore. They're also working with many of the large corporations as well. So that was it from me. So hope to see you in any of the hubs in Asia, or to see you on some of the tours that we will try and tailor make, especially for the IoT and maker industry as well. Cool.
Hi everyone, I'm Daniel Ljungstig from Tredjeverkstan. For those of you who don't recognize me since before, I was one of the co-founders of Stockholm Makerspace, but that was a long time ago now. So anyway, this is just a short pre-announcement because now I'm working together with the 20 colleagues with 3D printing, additive manufacturing full time. And after summer, in September, we will host a startup event for Nordic startups targeted towards additive manufacturing. So if you're interested in that or working with that, please have a look out. We have now partnered up with AM Ventures. So we are looking for interesting startups in both hardware, software, and materials. So consider it a pre-announcement and feel free to just say hi if you know anyone or is interested in this. More info to follow later. Thanks. Who's next?
Do you have a slide of me?
I have a slide of someone.
Is it me?
roboticsindex.com.
That's not me.
But you can still announce your
I can still announce. Hi, I'm an old hardware alumni from long ago. I also work at a government agency, or the dark side. I work at the Swedish Patents and Registrations Office, and we are also working with how to support innovative companies and innovation in general, which is why we're thinking of having a talk here later this year. And we were thinking of either having it on how to find information in patent literature, which is, I don't know if anyone has ever tried doing that, but it's pretty difficult. But it's basically an untapped gold mine of information that you can use, whether you're trying to start a new business or doing research, or you just want to make something really, really cool for your apartment or house. If you can think of it, someone else has probably done most of it already. Or we're thinking for maybe startups or new businesses, how to protect your intellectual property, maybe through patents or trademarks or design, just how to protect what you actually done. So if you're interested in this, please talk to me, send an email to sven.bocker@prv.se. We would love to get your feedback if this is something that would be interesting, because we want to help innovative companies or innovative people in general. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sven, were you doing the presentation and demo on the racing cars?
Yeah,
Yep.
that was, I think it was the 4th or 5th hardware.
So very early days for SthlmHW. Yep. Good to see you again. Anyone else with something to announce to come up and share?
Sure.
Good initiative. Please.
Hi, I'm Konrad Bergström. I used to do headphones and speakers and some smartphones. Now I'm doing electric boats, and we launched in Düsseldorf on Saturday. So you can go and check out xshore.com. That's the new thing. So if you want to go in 40 knots without any noise, any fumes, this is the way to go. It's a totally new experience, and it's fucking good.
Did anyone else get inspired to come and share something? Okay. Then I think we are on to Ted next for a keynote on first-hand impressions from CES. So please welcome Ted.
Thank you. So my name is Ted. This is a picture of myself from last year's presentation from CES, when I was talking about massage chairs. A lot of massage chairs at CES, as you can imagine. Not this year, though. At least not in the top 5 that I will go through right now. And for those of you who don't know, CES, Consumer Electronics Show, the largest trade show in the world in Las Vegas, takes over the whole city pretty much. They have the convention center, and then like every hotel, every other event space, and and so forth. Don't remember how many were there this year, but it's a lot of people. Last year, I stood here on stage and went through the 4 trends or streams or things that stood out the most back then. And for those of you who were here then, remember that it was these 4. So I was talking about that voice and AI was everywhere. And the fight then was between Google and Amazon around voice. And then AI, I think most companies just crammed in some AI offering into whatever they already had. But that was like the biggest hype. The first year when cars, I would say, dominated the show last year. A lot of electrified cars, a lot of connected cars. Augmented reality took over VR, I think, last year. And then I also spoke about that the startups had made their way into CS. There was a big pavilion collab between TechCrunch and the local, both American and European startup associations that were highlighting more than 300 different startups. And I think the reason that I go to CS is, of course, to try to see what patterns and trends are there and so forth. But what I think is interesting is trying to figure out whether what I'm seeing at CS actually is the future for these companies who exhibit there, or if whatever they present is something they've made just because they can. Like Samsung, they're creating fridges and screens. Why not just put a screen on a fridge? Makes a lot of sense. Or is this just a marketing stunt? So I think when you just stroll the show floor, it's kind of hard to navigate and say, what is this really? But that's kind of like a fun game I'm playing with myself. So this year, 5 different things that stood out to me at least. And the first one was that this year it felt like one of those in-between years. A lot of the stuff that were presented you had seen before, either online or at last year's CS. So the first one I named last year's stuff, but launched. So last year we saw, for instance, LG's rollable OLED. It was then a prototype. This is what it looked like. This year they announced that they're launching it. Same thing. Last year we saw Samsung's modular wall TV, which is pretty cool. It consists of small Lego pieces of QLED, as they call it, and then you piece them together into a massive screen. Last year they showcased a 146-inch screen. This year a 219-inch screen if you need a bigger one. And they're also selling it. So the stuff that was launched last year, but you can buy it. Another example here is IBM with their quantum computer that they showcased last year, the IBM Q. So to the left, a picture from last year, and now they announced it as a service. Still, I would say prototype, but now you can really access it as a cloud service. The thing just to point out how sort of serious, and you see this picture is like super nicely styled, and then you look at the booth from last year. Someone realized, holy shit, we have to promote the website URL. I love this. research.ibm.com/ibmq/network, and then just on the side, it's a freaking quantum computer. So that was like last year's stuff launched. Second one is even more voice, and I think it's clear that it's a war going on between specifically Google, Amazon, maybe some of the Chinese companies, and then Apple, I would say, is a bit late to the party, trying to squeeze in Siri in different ways. Just more devices, just beyond the usual cars and TVs and different types of speakers. Some stuff that stood out was this shower by Moen that you could activate with your voice. I don't know what you would like that. A mirror that you could activate with your voice. Lenovo smart clock. And then this was not part of the CS announcement, but during CS, Google announced that they will be sneaking in Google Assistant inside Google Maps on iOS. So they're doing everything they can to win this race. That was the second one. Moving on to the third one, and also talking about Apple and Siri. So Apple pulled out of award sort of conventions that they don't host themselves a few years back. As you know, they do WWDC on their own. So they were not officially there, but they were still there. And they were there in two ways. They were there with this billboard that got a lot of buzz, like promoting privacy. What happens on your iPhone stays on your iPhone, and of course this being Las Vegas. But even more interestingly was that it seems like Apple opened up, and every TV manufacturer, every speaker manufacturer were promoting Apple AirPlay 2, which of course is their streaming technology for both audio and video. So all the TV manufacturers, Sony, LG, Samsung, and the audio people were promoting partnerships with Apple. And Samsung even went further and announced that they will be putting Apple movies and Apple TV shows as a native app on their Samsung TVs. So you don't even need an Apple TV in the future. So if you think about this, it's almost like tech companies like Apple embraced partnerships. They're not doing everything themselves. So maybe partnerships could be like a sub-theme, partnerships and collabs. And you saw a lot of like big consumer brands and big technology brands doing stuff together. I like this one. This is a collab between BMW and North Face, a tent on wheels. Who wouldn't like one of those? That was number 3, Apple. Number 4, flexible and foldable displays is reaching some kind of mature stage. Of course, the roll-up TV that we talked about earlier, but also smaller form factor, foldable or flexible OLEDs. And we've seen these as prototypes for a long time, but this Chinese company called Royale, they beat Samsung and LG and all the companies with the first commercially available foldable smartphone. So this is a tablet that folds. I think he's filming like the wrong side though. That folds into a smartphone. It's pretty cool. It's a bit clunky. It's like one of those like Gen 1 devices, but it's pretty cool. And you can really see the use case for something like this if it's maybe slightly better built. Google announced already last year that they will be supporting foldable devices natively in Android. These are some mock-ups of that. But Google also showed for the first time some UI and what that would look like and how that would work. So I think 2019, from a handset perspective, will be the year of foldable devices. Samsung will be, the rumor still, be announcing a bunch of new handsets very soon, talking about Galaxy X, this radical new concept. LG trademarked a bunch of different trademarks there. And this one is older, but I'm sure Apple is working on something there as well. Which was number 4. Moving on to the last one, which is robots, and also robots. Samsung's bot, I would say the first robot concept that was something more than just a cool robot. They had 3 models. One they call Bot Care, which sort of is there to try to figure out how you are. Could be both for care institutions and for elderly. They had Bot Air, a very unclear product that apparently goes. It's like a air humidifier and an air cleaner that somehow goes to where the air is the worst in your house and cleans the air there. And then you had Bot Retail, which is for trains and stuff, which is cool. Here you have LG's CEO, either to the left or to the right. So these are like more standard form factor robots, but then you had robotization of more stuff. So this one was kind of cool, like a Foldimate, a robot that folds your clothes. You had the bread bot, of course, baking your bread. Pretty clunky, but pretty cool. Or just hire a baker. And a lot of beauty. So a lot of beauty, like robot-like booths, stuff like that. This is a company called SK2, a Korean company. A lot of Korean companies into beauty, which they scan your face and and they offer you various products. This is me here, and stay calm. My pores are totally fine. So those are my 5 main, the stuff I saw that I thought stood out. I just want to share with you the best thing that I'm happy I didn't try at CS. And like some of you know, I'm on the board of one of our portfolio companies. It's a virtual reality company called Vario for the enterprise. I'm very interested in all the add-ons and all the input devices and stuff like that. And there was one company called Tesla Suit, which is a British company creating a haptic costume or haptic suit to go with VR, both for enterprise use cases, but also for games and simulations and stuff like that. And I had booked a meeting with them to go check it out, and I reached out to a guy working at Vario and asked him if he wanted to join me. And then I was supposed to go there at 5, and then I realized that I was in the other part of the city and it was not where I thought he was. So he went there on his own, and he tried the suit, and he texted me this afterwards, for the ones of you who know Swedish. Holy shit, there was a lot of kick in that suit. Electrical power, full power. It hurt like hell, but pretty cool feeling. So I'm very happy that I did not try that one, that I went to some other place. And with that being said, thank you.
Yeah, possibly. You have one of these. Yes, you do. That would be good. This year on CS, we also had, I can talk while we switch slides over, the first case where an autonomous self-driving car ran over a self-walking robot. Yeah, very interesting moment in history right there. Cool, I think that's you. You can also get a clicker. Or unless you don't want one. Because I think, there we go. The thing is here. You can get a clicker. And a microphone.
And a microphone. So, Håkan Ahlgren, CTO and Chief Architect at WSI, Wireless System Integration in Kista. I'll not talk about our company. I'll talk about the trends that I saw at CES as well. And CES is a consumer electronics or consumer device fair. Well, we are very much into electronics and designing things. Oh, sorry. So I was obviously looking for somewhere that I could find some cool technology that we can use in devices that we make for our customers. But I realized that we had to look on a higher level and looking on devices instead. What you'll see now is the trends that I've found on devices. As we already heard, smart speakers, that is exploding, really. And you see that everywhere where you go in Stockholm or wherever you live. Smart speakers in everywhere and in everything. And again, Google and Amazon would be the biggest players. I would say that you see Amazon is leading the race where you see voice control is getting into most devices. Google is slightly behind. What you see here is Echo and Google Home, and there would be some Wi-Fi router from Asus, including smart speakers. Now we also see that this is getting into headsets. So Jabra would use the connection or Bluetooth to the phone getting into the cloud. So native voice recognition in the sense of wake word in the headsets, and then you go to the phone to access the cloud for remaining control. So in everything, and then going to the smart home, Google continued to develop the smart home, really. This biggest new device this year was the Google Home Hub. Now you take the Google Home device, which is a speaker, smart speaker, and then you add the display to it, and now you can ask for, give me a recipe or show me how to shave an onion or how to, and then it will play for you. So this actually becomes really a new device in your home, the central part of the smart home. 5G. So Samsung was the most pronounced, I would say, they were most advanced in 5G. They presented a system where more or less all the different parts of a 5G system is already there and can be launched. What is not visible here is the smartphone. So they had a smartphone as well, a prototype within glass, but it looks like an ordinary Samsung phone. You who don't know 5G, you will have the massive MIMO unit, which would be representing the standard base stations today. You'll have the CPE, which is the consumer and premises equipment. This is the devices that you have at home. But it takes 5G to your home, and then it converts it to Wi-Fi, so you have a broadband through Wi-Fi at home. You have the other devices here, like the 5G access unit, which would be more like the buildings and offices. This is where you bring in 5G to the offices, again, going to either 5G or Wi-Fi. And then the connectivity node, which is more like a device that you put in the light use lamps. Light poles. Would be specifically for IoT. And in the smartphone from Samsung, you'll have 5G and 4G, because 5G wouldn't support audio or voice from start. So LTE would be the voice contributor in the smartphones. This is really amazing. They are there. They are ready to launch. Wireless networks, also the main very clear trend was the Wi-Fi 6. Now we're getting 802.11ax devices out there. There are chipsets from Broadcom and some others that I actually don't recall. You also have TP-Link revealing their first product, 11 gigabit per second in a Wi-Fi router. I mean, now things are happening. And take this one into a house where you have 5G and you'll have enough bandwidth for sure. HP and Dell are also presented laptops supporting Wi-Fi 6. And then chipsets and platforms. Qualcomm is very much there. So they presented 5G and LTE modems. They also presented something that was quite new. So far, you said that graphical accelerators are used for AI engines. So the massive data crunching that you can do for AI, the graphical accelerator would be sufficient. Actually, now Qualcomm claims that AI is different. The algorithms that you would like to do is different from a graphical accelerator, what it can do for you. So they have now designed a hardware accelerator specifically for AI, which is now entering the phones. So AI hardware acceleration, and then 4G HDR, high HDR. Right, exactly. So this is something that both recording and playback is really there, and you'll see some other slides. HDR and 4K HDR is really happening everywhere. High silicon, that would be Huawei's chipset company. They also deliver the chipset for, or pronounce the chipset for CP, the consumer premises device. NXP, they have Edge AI reference platforms. This is probably something that most of you would like to play around with. These are platforms with the PCBs already made. It runs FreeRTOS and a small engine for voice recognition that is free of charge. The idea is that you would have a physical hardware without mechanics in the range of $10 in fairly small volumes for voice recognition, wake word and voice recognition, both native on the device and in the cloud. They also had the same platform for face recognition. So this is something that within the range of $10, $11, you would have face recognition or voice control, and you can put it in any kind of device. Broadcom, we mentioned Wi-Fi 6 transceivers. Intel, they presented a new platform, a PC chipset, Ice Lake. I don't know all the details, so you can look into the website if you would like to. AI platforms, autonomous driving, blah, blah, blah. Everyone are kind of there when you look on the big chipset vendors. This is interesting. Now, autonomous vehicles, I wouldn't bother about self-driving cars and all these things. You can read that in all magazines. What is happening, and I see a clear trend here, is that there are a lot of companies looking at how would you make use of the technology in the car in a new way. So taking away the external mirrors because they cause turbulence and thus they consume energy. take away those, put some small cameras there, and then you use already this very nice mirror inside the car. You can put displays in there, and then you see whatever cameras in the car or around the car. If you also put cameras in there, you can now do iris detection. So now you can use this for authentication. You can use the cameras for detecting driver awareness, whether the driver is getting sick, tired, distracted. You can do personalization of the cabin based on who is entering the car. Well, Håkan Algren is entering the car. You're allowed to drive this car, but you're not allowed to drive it more than 100 kilometers per hour. And I know that you would like to have the seat orientated in this way, right? Another trend, I saw it, I would claim that this is a trend. Several platforms were there. Chassis of electronic cars, autonomous driving, of course, but electronic cars. You have a chassis, the battery, the engines, the steering wheel and everything, and the drive-by-wire. You put a whatever chassis on top of the cabin on top of that. And you can make a taxi or a recreational vehicle or a whatever car on top of that. And so many platforms that were shown, I don't think that is another thing than a trend. So it makes me believe that we will see small companies that make specific cars for specific use. So new brands coming up. AR and VR. AR goggles getting closer to ordinary sunglasses. This is very clear. So far you'd seen something that looked like VR headsets, but now you're seeing this very nice branded goggles. This specific company, Vuzex, we're working for companies, mainly companies on professional use. But they also have a demonstration where you use these nice goggles on the left side, and you entered a shop, and you actually made your grocery shopping with these with the goggles. So for sure, this is really happening now. An MC helmets with AR inside doing navigation in the shield. Drones. Time is flying, so I will just skip. But drones are really happening, and I would say that this platform, again, something that maybe some here in the room would be interested in. NXP is offering the Hover Game Drone Kit. It's a complete drone which is autonomous, so you can program missions with a PC tool, but you can also drive it with a remote control. The kit implements everything you need for a drone, but then the interface for a custom hardware that you put on top of this for image recognition, or specifically what you are interested in. This device, and I think that they said 4K SEK for the equipment. It sounds cheap, but that's what I heard. We will for sure buy this for WSI to start working on drones. Also, wrong. Here, another thing was autonomous missions, very much taking care of whatever hinders are out there. So this device are equipped with a very heavy and high quality camera, but then you have like 5 Intel RealSense sensors. So this is really serious. 5 Intel RealSense, those are not only expensive, but they're extremely complicated. But this would then be sufficient to really maneuver totally on its own and take care of all the hinders out there. Wireless charging, of course, if you have devices out there doing their pre-programmed missions, they need to charge somewhere. So this company, Get Corporation, they have 15 kilowatt wireless chargers supporting an area of like 100 square meters. And the drones, when they got low on battery, they go to this pre-programmed area and charge, and then they continue their missions. And then agriculture, heavy industry, etc. These are actually also drones. John De Geer, they presented their skördetröska. and so they also clearly said, we are not new to this with autonomous driving vehicles. Within agriculture machinery, they have had self-driving tractors for a few years, going on GPS and doing pre-programmed missions. But I was so impressed by the size and that this is really happening. Right, and then underwater drones. A lot of drones for on top of water, underwater, etc. And most of you know that radio waves for radio control of these kind of devices wouldn't work that well underwater. So those that have to be controlled, they run on wire, like these ones that are mainly used for research purposes. But the other ones, they have pre-programmed missions, and then they let go underwater and do their mission, and then they come up again, and then they can be controlled. One very serious trend was improved imaging on drones. Every drone have had cameras for the first day that drones were released, right? But now DJI, they're actually putting Hasselblad cameras on top of their devices. So the Pro 2 version has a Hasselblad camera. It's collaboration with image processing and lens design. It's not a big Hasselblad camera, but... Sorry? They bought the company. We need to talk. I missed that one. And FLIR also had a very big station on the fair where they presented all these kinds of cameras that are using. But FLIR are very much present within the drone space. I just need to show this. Some things are not really made for the best of humanity, I think. These are suitcases that follow you wherever you go. And the first thing, well, of course, how do you know that you don't get a wrong suitcase in the end of the day? Well, it implements AI, face recognition, some different sensors that would recognize you in this wholly crowded area. But whether it works or not, I'm sure. We'll know. Yeah, but just imagine. Hey Google, go to this in checking. Deliver. Face recognition. You see this everywhere. Face recognition and AI characterization. You will see clothes, gender, age, mode of the people. Like they claim that I have goggles or glasses. I don't have, but I have long sleeves, upper ployed trousers. Yeah, okay, so fairly good match. This one claims that I'm a male, I'm a visitor, okay, 40 to 45 years old. It missed my age by kind of 10 years. I'm natural, but I have a killer behind me because he's angry, it says. So I'm just thinking that, okay, so this technology could easily be used in a taxi, where the taxi driver actually get information that I have some, a guy that looks dangerous behind me. So this is getting into everything, into the shops where the security system in the shop would know that the people in the shop right now are fairly aggressive, or they are tolerant to new things, or what have you. Urban transportation, electronic scooters, that was the main thing. But electronics transportation goes into everything, like monowheels kind of shoes. Looks dangerous to me. It's also a very clear trend that the big brands are getting in there. So Jeep, Lamborghini, Maserati, they're getting their brands on devices. And to me, that means that they are serious. They have understood that this is not a toy anymore. This is really happening. Imaging, mirrorless cameras. Everyone goes mirrorless now, with all the advantages that comes there. So all the big players are there, including Hasselblad with their X1D. They also go 4K HDR video recording. But the most clear trend, and where everyone is kind of racing right now, is to get their autofocus better than everyone else. So in this A9 from Sony, you have 20 frames per second with eye tracking that really works. So you can anywhere take your 20 frames per second and track the device that runs towards you or moves around, and you will continuously keep the face in focus, or the eyes in focus. And it seems like everyone is racing about this, and wherever you read about cameras, this is the thing that they are concerned about. Focus, eye focus, face recognition, which is the best. And resolution, it seems like everyone is stalling at 24 to 30 megapixel. Hasselblad have their 50 and 100 megapixel cameras, but for the rest, it seems like 24 to 30 megapixel is where you end up right now. And then the television, I think we already mentioned that, but 8K, wherever you are, 8K. That is the main trend. And when you ask about, okay, so where are the material? Okay, so you can video record in 5K right now, so very, very little media are out there for 8K. And they claim that 50 megabit per second to your home would be sufficient to stream 8K. So my optical fiber to my home doesn't really cope with my 1K TV set. So I doubt that this will really be something that we use for streaming, but it's impressive when you show it. And the rollable screens, of course. And then the last picture. I was asked to go here because this would be the thing. It's a hamburger from Impossible Foods, the Impossible Burger 2.0. 1.0, I understand, was not really as good. So this is a vegetarian hamburger. It's made of, I don't recall the exact material. It doesn't really matter because it tastes and have exactly the texture of food. This is a hamburger, period. and this will it's in US right now. They're launching it, and in Asia. They didn't know exactly when to go to Europe, but it will definitely happen. Okay, thank you. And if there are any questions, please come to me after.
Okay, spot on. Thank you, and spot on time. It is 7. How did you manage to stay within your time slot? Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, so yes, we are going to take a 15-minute break. We're 1 minute behind or ahead. Maybe I'll waste it. But then after the break, we'll have Women in Hardware Startup of the Month, a few lightning talks. As mentioned, if some of you are interested in doing a lightning talk, come up and talk to one of the co-organizers, and we'll give you 5 minutes on stage. Then we'll wrap up at around 8. So thanks so far, and see you in 15 minutes.
program. Så vi försöker liksom sänka trösklarna för folk som är superduktiga, som har det lite för bra, som vill starta företag men liksom, det blir inte av. Liksom, man har barn, man har bra betalt, man liksom orkar inte. Så då kommer man in i programmet och får betalt och hitta en co-founder i programmet. Och även liksom hitta sin idé i programmet så att man inte bara blir kär i någonting. Vi liksom, det är en fond, så vi skapade en investeringsfond och så betalas det och sen såklart tar vi en del av bolaget. Men det går liksom bästa möjliga förutsättningar och du får liksom, du kan tänka dig efter varje liksom, grupp så är det 20 företag som vill ha finansiering och har superväl liksom, pitchar och har fått liksom, allt stöd som man kan tänka sig. Så det är liksom tvärtom. Och liksom, otroligt mycket bättre villkor. Och lugnet på något sätt. För vi tar bort hela liksom, de behöver inte tänka på liksom, pengar, men de behöver inte helt tänka på admin och starta sitt bolag. Vi sköter alla i admin. Och sen är det in och fixa liksom, personer som ska i alla fall lyssna på sin pitch. Det är det, så på något sätt man fokuserar på det. Och så tar man bort det här som nästan alltid är problemet. Där folk blir liksom, man validerar inte sin idé, de blir kär i dem bara. Och på det här sättet liksom, för att jag måste pitcha min idé till alla i det här rummet och de tittar på mig som liksom, ska jag jobba med dig i liksom, flera år och jobba med detta. Det blir ganska hård granskning där alla är liksom, ganska duktiga. Det är ganska superspännande. Vi har varit igång i ett år i Singapore och sen har vi precis börjat i Stockholm. Och sen började vi köra. Det var länge sedan. Jag har pitchat förklara answer. Jag har börjat.
Inte förbannad
inte liksom gick i båten, liksom ett steg in där. Så man börjar med personer, ta in dem, så tar man dem. Då faller i programmet. Man tar bort det här liksom, jag blir kär i min idé och sen övertygar min kompis att hoppa på. Så det är ganska finansierat av företag med vi är liksom man kan säga det är en såld VC. Så vi tar equity i alla bolag som går ut.
Ja, jag är precis motsatsen. Jag har köpt loss alla IP för liksom, konsultåren men ingen pengar.
Det blir liksom, man försöker egentligen framförallt dels att folk hittar en partner som är liksom kompenserade för dem, expanderande. Och dels liksom alla de personer som har liksom 15 års erfarenhet har det lite för bra. Vi är fast har det lite för bra. Det är ett sätt för dem att liksom hoppa in i någonting istället för att liksom ta steget alldeles själv. Nej, det är spännande. Du då? Vad håller du på med?
Alltså jag passar av våra delar i
du har ett barn som är etniskt till.
två. Jag har nästa barn due date i lördags. Jag är nummer 2 på dem. Men som jag kollade lite på telefonen nu för att jag är så här på standby.
Så pass.
Men vi har Persson konsultbyrån och sen satsar vi på högtalarföretaget och några andra idéer. Men högtalarföretaget är också produktionsutmaningar som är så här mycket kommer upp armarna och det snurrar lite. Men det går framåt.
Det är väl så. Det är liksom trögt tills det är det. Eller?
Ja, men precis.
And not unions for you either. Good. Okay, so we are almost ready for our next event. Frederick, in the back. Is there any beer left down there? Ellen? Daniel? Okay. I'm just thinking if I call you out by name, you're going to realize that we're waiting for you to sit down. Okay. The break was a little longer than planned, but you all seemed like you were having such a good time. Lots of talking, and there's still beer left. So we've had a break, and we have a few, we have two of our new, hopefully recurring segments, Women in Hardware and Hardware Startup of the Month. Then some lightning talks, and I think we just had a new person come up and say that Oscar said he would like to also do a lightning talk. So if anyone else would like to do that, you're more than welcome. So we have maybe about an hour's worth of more fun. So please welcome to the stage Beatrice and Dora.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Yeah, my name is Dora, and this is Beatrice, and we're here to talk about SthlmHW, which is our company. So let me just start with the simple exercise in logic that we try to introduce to our audience usually. I'm pretty sure that most of you here agree with the statement that technology is really the future. Time to disagree? Okay. And unfortunately, we are also aware of the fact that women today are not as involved in creating technologies as men are. So in the EU, about 17% of tech professionals are women. And also here at KTH is about the same number, maybe 16, 17% of the students are female. So then kind of logically follows that women do not have an equal chance to contribute to the future, which is like a really sad conclusion, but a really strong reason for us to work harder and for us to exist. So what we're trying to do is really bridge this existing gap and bring more women into tech. And there's a lot of initiatives today. Tech companies are trying to hire more women, a lot of workshops for younger girls. But we see that there is kind of a gap between the age of 12 and 16. So up to age 12, there's a lot of toys that are rather gender neutral, and kids, both girls and boys, are equally interested in tech and STEM. But at that age, something starts to happen and girls start dropping interest. So that is kind of our challenge that we're addressing. How can we involve teenage girls and keep their interest up for technology so that when we get to university, we'll have an equal number of girls and guys going into engineering and technology. So this all began as a research project I did as part of my master's here at KTH, working together with a lot of girls, try to understand what are the things that they would want to use to learn about coding. And so I'm not from the hardware side of things. I studied human-computer interaction, did a lot of user-centered design. And some of the things I learned from girls was that they really like self-expression and customization. They like to have a community around their interests. Actually, I think that applies to most of us. But also that, interestingly, teenage girls today love using their phones. They're all on their phones all the time, but don't use computers that much. So the idea emerged, what if we could, I'll just stay here, lower the barrier to entry to coding by bringing programming right to the phone and bringing it into the daily, everyday activities of girls. And it also seems like, okay, there is probably kind of a market for this because we digged up some data and saw that parents do want also their daughters to learn coding, not just their sons. And also, as I said, girls have phones. In Sweden, this number is close to 100%, the teenage girls that own smartphones. So how could we make this happen? And so the idea that came out of the workshops originally was having a tangible product. Sorry, I will actually jump a slide here. So the results from my research were that girls like the self-expression and customization and the community aspect, but also something I found was that having a tangible product and something that could show what coding is used for was really interesting. So we had an original idea of creating fun products that make the coding experience more relatable and bringing coding right to the phone and making this whole experience more social. And here, I will just jump back here. So as I mentioned, I studied human-computer interaction and had this research project, had this idea. And I was lucky enough to have a best friend who was coming from an electrical engineering background. So I was like, okay, this is a perfect match, and let's try to make this happen. So I got Beatrice on board to try to bring more girls into tech, and then I'll pass it on to her.
So yeah, going back to the slide with our solution. So putting together the results from the research that Dora did, we understood that we really need a hardware device that would act as a hook to get these girls excited about programming, and then introduce programming in a fun and engaging way and in a tangible way by connecting it to this visual component, and also create a community around their interest to code. So here's a prototype of this little gadget that we created, and I'm gonna go tell you a bit more about the journey of how we ended up with these boxes and what they do. So the idea, actually, let's skip to this slide. Yeah. So if doing hardware wasn't hard enough, we're trying to do hardware and software and build a community around programming and showing girls that programming and engineering is really fun and has applications in real life beyond just programming robots, which I agree is fun and a very important application, but you know, there's so many things out there that you can do with programming. So in this attempt to get more girls engaged and teenagers, you know, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you in the audience know how difficult it is to work with teenagers, probably better than me or better than us. So we're trying to put out content there to show girls that this is fun. So I'm just gonna show some snippets from a video that, you know, where we try to convey some of these things. Let's see. Hello. I'm back with a new unboxing video, and oh no. Hello. I'm back with a new unboxing video, and this one is gonna be very special because we just received our first circuit board from fabrication. So we printed our first batch of PCBs, and I'm going to open the box and see how they look like together with you. So here we go. So again, the audience for this is girls who have no idea some of the packaging already. So let's see. And it has holes for where the components will go. So basically, we're gonna place this onto the PCB, and then manually place the components that we will then solder onto the PCB. So this is used when you do surface mount device soldering, so SMD soldering. Okay, so I thought that these would be the boards, but then it means that this box has the boards. So here we have the quote that we chose for this one. So, "Disruption on the first day always looks like a toy," by Steve Blank. So yeah, and we don't stop here. So I actually have another box that has all the components that will go onto these PCBs. So we ordered quite a few components. It's always cheaper if you order more. Okay, I think I will stop there. This is probably enough. Let's see if I can go back. Yeah, so not a YouTube star yet, but in the making. Okay, and then let's continue. Okay, so a little bit more about our journey and what are we doing with these, how did we get to these cubes? So we got started about a 1.5 years ago with support from KTH Innovation, just down the road. They encouraged us to commercialize what originally was a research idea or a research result. And then after that, Dora went down to Chile to Santiago to join a 4-month pre-accelerator program for female founders. And people there thought it was ridiculous that she went there with this idea of building a hardware startup just in 4 months. But nonetheless, we did manage to build a prototype during that time. So this was our first prototype. And back then, we were still making a phone case. And let me tell you, teenage girls really, really love this idea. So they buy phone cases that look different every day. And being able to use programming to change your phone case was super exciting to them. And again, if there's parents in the audience, maybe you know this. Then Dora came back. We continued with support from KTH Innovation and also joined the Ericsson One incubator. Among the perks, we had there was access to electronics labs, so that was great for prototyping. And then in September last year, we had our MVP launch, where we right here again at KTH at Tekla Festival. So we ran a workshop and the organizers wanted the girls to be able to take something home. So because we didn't know what kind of phones they had, we decided to package the hardware in a simpler product, in a simpler form factor. And this is how we ended up with these cubes. And guess what? They were super successful. So everybody loved them. And I mean, they're kind of cute. You're welcome to come try them out after the presentation. So then we thought, okay, maybe if we want to get to market fast and push our product out there, we should come up with a simpler form factor that still delivers on the same value proposition. I mean, we received feedback, it was very welcomed. So then now we're working on an iteration of the cube, which is also a wearable accessory that allows you to express yourself with coding, and you can attach it to your backpack, to your keys, wear it with you, and express yourself with it. So now we're working hard to finalize our looks like prototype and starting to talk to manufacturers because we're launching our first product in May on Kickstarter or Indiegogo. So if you're interested and know girls, please watch out for that and let them know. Yeah, just a few more words about these cubes. So of course, launching an MVP was a source of early revenue. We also received really good feedback and so we made some money. We sold these at quite a high price, and I guess we could say that it was because they were made in Sweden. But often people asked us actually how these were made. So I will show you another video. In case you were wondering the same. This one has no sound, so we're good. So yeah, so this is not actually the speed at which we work, but it took many hours to, first of all, 3D print these cubes, which Dora did, and then soldering everything, and a lot of glue wasted. I apologize for that. But after many hours of work, we got these 30 units made, and the price still didn't actually charge for the hours that we put into. It was just because we used off-the-shelf components, which are expensive. So if there's anyone from Shell & Co. here or M.New actually, maybe next time we can get a discount. Okay, so again, we got a lot of good feedback from the girls that came to the workshop and the other recurring workshops that we've been running. They find our solution the right mix of fun and challenge, and the average rating for programming with us is 4.7 on a scale from 1 to 5. Actually, 70% of them rate it as a 5-star activity. So we are very confident that we're really delivering on the value proposition that we have. This is our team. So our co-founding duo was joined by 6 part-time members who have backgrounds in mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, sales, marketing, business communications, iOS development. And we're trying to get them to join us full-time. So we're fundraising. And at the same time, working to finalize the Works Like Looks Like prototype. So if you have brought a hardware product to market, or if you have any contract manufacturer contacts that you think would be a good match for us, please come talk to us and join us in building a future that is coded and, let's say, engineered by all. Thank you.
Why don't we open up for a few questions? Maybe we'll take just a few minutes, maybe.
If we have time, yeah.
Yes.
We went a little bit over time.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Questions? Yeah.
What was the most surprising thing that you discovered during your journey? And please repeat the question.
What was the most surprising thing that we discovered in our journey?
Let's see. That we can work together like 60 hours a week or more and still be best friends. I think that's pretty cool.
Well, I think something recent or not so recent, but something that wasn't obvious to us from the beginning was actually that the problem lies between this age group of 12 to 16. So in the beginning, we thought that, we must start really early and reach out to very young girls. But actually, at that age, there are many tools out there, and they're pretty engaging. So I think that was a revelation that there's this one particular age group down the line that's where the gap is. I think we had one here. In the front, yes.
Do you find out why the interest is dropped during the age, especially for girls?
Well, if only we knew. Sorry. Oh, the question, right? If we found out why the interest drops in that age group, and my answer was, if only we knew. But
I guess, I was asked this same question earlier today. We have different hypotheses and ideas. But I guess only time will tell if our solution is right. But there's a lot of social pressure that kicks in around that age, or it seems like a lot of expectations and just a lack of encouragement. It's almost like the lack of expectation and encouragement for girls to be interested in technology or be interested in STEM and be good at it. And also I think, around that time, it's really... it seems like girls like to do what their friends like to do, and coding is not really part of any of those activities that are in their daily lives right now.
Yeah, and again, these are general trends, right? Of course, there are exceptions, and we're very happy that there are exceptions, but this is what we see generally.
This is definitely part of what we're constantly trying to learn, and we are meeting and testing and working together with teenage girls on a weekly basis, and just trying to learn more to better understand this.
So it's understandable why you target girls, but have you thought about also engaging boys at this age?
Yes. So, some of our workshops, we've piloted at schools and tried it with boys as well, and they equally like it, which is great. And once we launch, we're not going to be in the, behind people and be like, no, you can't buy it if you're a boy. But so we have a clear focus, which we believe gives us also the edge, essentially, to really target clearly what is our market.
No, just saying that I have a teenage brother, and it seems like it's just a trend for like this kind of age with kids who are not really interested in technology. So that I see how it could be a brilliant tool for not just dogs, but like teenagers in general.
You should buy one for him.
Take my money.
We have one in the back.
Yeah.
My last question. In order to have like a durable effect of your effort, do you foresee that it become more a for-profit organization or non-profit?
Repeat the question.
So yeah, the question if we see ourselves become more for-profit or a non-profit. Yeah, so we definitely see ourselves as a social enterprise, social venture, right? We have a social mission, and when it comes to key metrics, the impact we create will always be extremely important. But then I guess there's two things. One, we see that there's a lot of non-profits running workshops, for example, for girls, but the impact is not as scalable as if you manage to create something that can sustain itself. And we definitely see in the long run, we can collaborate and partner up with larger organizations who have the same mission, but still having our own source of sustainable revenue can really scale our impact. And then the other is, so if you are able to create something of value to the world, of course, I think it makes sense to use that value and charge for it and feed that back into your own system. So for us, the social impact is extremely important, and we think we can scale that better in a for-profit model.
Okay, I think that was the last one.
Good job. Great, thank you. Okay, great. So next up is the featured hardware startup of the month. So here's Ricard to talk about Labtrino. Welcome, Ricard.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. My name is Ricard Redin. I'm the COO and one of the co-founders of Labtrino. We're a startup based here on Things, developing an intelligent water meter system, sub-metering system for water in apartment buildings. Our mission is to increase water usage awareness in order to essentially eliminate waste of water and energy in apartments. So who are we? We are 4 engineers here from KTH with backgrounds in electronics, mechanics, prototype, backend database, and business development. I'm going to shape this presentation a bit differently. It's going to be more like a story of how Labtrino actually came to be. It all started about 2 years ago when Ramtin over there and Thibaut in the back looked in their homes and saw things were getting smart. Either they already were smart or getting smart. You had smart fridges, smart freezers, smart thermostats, but still many things that could be smart weren't smart. One of these things were showers. You had 2 wheels, one on one side with min to max supposedly showing you flow at an arbitrary scale. And on the other side you had a scale from red to blue, supposedly showing your temperature, also at an arbitrary scale. But you don't really know how much water you use, how much energy you use, and you have no idea what your favorite settings are. So requiring you to feel your way to find your optimum settings. So what they did is that they developed this. It's a smart shower prototype. It worked. It showed temperature, flow, and a bunch of other stuff. It learned your favorite setting and set it automatically as you came into the bathroom. However, the product got super expensive, and apparently it was really hard to find customers to find it as who found it as fantastic as Ramtin and Thibaut did. There was no customer need. So scrapped that and went back to the core. What is that we're actually trying to do with this project? It's creating water consumption awareness. And there's a lack of it today, because in a majority of apartments, very few know how much they consume, how much water they consume, what it costs, and it's actually by many considered to be free. This leads to massive overconsumption, and leaks are hard to identify and can run for days, weeks, or months without any action. It's kind of hard to detect, or even if you have them, why bother? It's still water is still free. Since all people pay the same, including rent, based on apartment size and not consumption, there's no monetary reason to be frugal. Instead, people who are actually wasteful get rewarded as they pay less than they should have had if they pay for their own consumption. We found that this is the case because in general there are no water meters on the apartment level because they are too expensive to install. So that's why we come up with the Detronometer smart water meter system. It detects leaks in specific apartments almost instantly. It installs and operates cost efficiently, and it saves money and water for all stakeholders. So how do we do this then? It's a clamp-on water meter. So we started off with this design, super duper sleek. It contained everything that we needed with the electronics and battery and all that stuff. But it was way too big for the spaces where we would install them. So scrapped that design, went into this one instead. Oh, too quick. Which is actually a classic clamp-on design. Just click it onto the pipe and then it fits. However, this design is only made for one pipe dimension, so manufacturing in the future would be a pain in the ass. So we scrapped that as well, and third time's a charm. Now we have this design, which is more of actually strapped on than the clamp-on design, which is super efficient for manufacturing purposes because it works with any type of any pipe dimension, and it works with ultrasonics. So I have a really great picture here showing you how it works. So you basically send one ultrasonic signal with the flow and one against the flow. And then there's be a time difference there for the signal to reach its destination. And that's how we know how much water is actually flowing through the pipe. So yeah, that's how it works. And in the box there's a battery and a PCB with a LoRa module. So that's how it connects to a base station somewhere in the apartment building where it's installed wirelessly. So that's the meter. There's just one problem with the ultrasonics. It needs this. It's ultrasonic coolant gel. And the problem, and actually the reason why you don't really have it in residential applications, is because this stuff dries out. It could dry out after just a few days. So we thought we had this perfect solution, and we kind of panicked because we realized that this stuff will dry out with a few days after installation. So we thought, how will we solve this problem? We got an idea of a solution which maybe could act as a permanent coolant if it had the right specifications. But what are those? We tried hundreds of alternatives, and all of them we thought would work, but none of them did. But eventually, after a quick few hundred hours, we actually found a solution that works without ultrasonic coolant gel, which is now patent pending. So software-wise, of course, we're a startup, so there's an app involved. The tenants can follow their consumption in real time in an app, both aggregated in terms of energy, volume, and cost, but also disaggregated, much like Wadi, if you know about them. So yeah, someone knew about them, yeah. So by analyzing flow patterns in the inlet pipes of each apartment, where we installed actual meters, we can figure out where the water is going, because there will be a different flow pattern for a shower, for a sink, for a dishwasher. So we can show you how much you consume in each different outlet. And it's really good for example, gamification, because now we can show you exactly where you have the most potential to save in terms of water usage and energy, of course. We don't develop our own dashboard for property managers. They can use their own. There's really simple API solutions for that. But what's in it for the client then? It's all good and well to save water and energy, but there's also the increased control. They can figure out leaks in time so they can avoid property damage. And there's also, of course, a return on investment. When going from the fixed cost included in rent to a floating cost that is based on your consumption, much like electricity, there's a return on investment and also future-proofing. Almost a large majority of countries in the world already have this solution. Sweden is actually an outlier here. So as it looks now, 2 years later, we're conducting pilot tests in real apartment buildings here in Stockholm and Gothenburg. We have proven the accuracy, which is kind of unintuitive. We have a deal with the property company for pilot tests during spring, patent pending, talking about scale manufacturing with 2 different options, and raised some funding. So here's our meters in action. And I was thinking about maybe giving you guys a meter to check out. So here's one of our demos. You can hand it around. Please don't remove the pipe. Here's our competitors in the lockers, and that's us. And here's also an example. So here's an apartment building in Gothenburg, where they, for research purposes, have put 1 meter for each outlet. So all of these meters had the same functionality as our meters here, which is kind of interesting. So we think we're the next generation of water meters. Talking about next generation, here we are currently. In the future, we see that water is not enough. It has to become some kind of an ecosystem where you can follow basically all your utilities. So we're planning to use our existing technology for heating energy, but also looking at electricity. But that's going to be something else. So that's the future. And that's it. Thank you for listening to me for the last minutes.
Cool. You can take a question or two.
Yes, please feel free. Hello.
How does the technology measure the speed of the liquid or the amount of liquid?
It's a bunch of different factors, but it's speed mostly. Yeah.
So you have to know the diameter.
Yeah.
Right.
So what was the name of the startup again?
Labotrino.
I'm going to tweet about it.
Please do. Yes.
Do you have any estimate of price for a tent?
Yeah. So it's kind of unclear. It's so unknown. I mean, with it's still very unknown. But when it comes to submetering, the actual client would be the property owner, and they would pay about 1,000 Swedish crowns for a hot water meter and 500 for a cold water meter, which is about 80% less than total cost otherwise, even when it comes to retrofitting. Yeah. Anyone?
Is your customer a consumer or a property owner? I mean, a building?
Yeah, it's always the property owner. So the property owner wants to go from the fixed cost in the rent to the floating cost, because of the reasons that we looked here. Return on investment mostly. Yeah, we looked at a bunch of different ways. We think that LoRa is the way going forward in apartment buildings and communications-wise. There's Modbus, but LoRa is the future because of the fact that it's long range and actually works in like buildings with thick walls, which otherwise would be impossible.
What's your measurement?
10 years, guaranteed. Yeah?
So the AI engine in the cloud analyzing where the water is going?
Yes.
Would that be a generic module for every customer, or would you have to train for each installation?
It's in general, showers look very, very similar, but there could be variations, and then that would be a factor, of course, training. Yeah. Yeah, we've made some tries when it comes to trials for installing, And as long as we have access, the cost of installation is less than 100 Swedish crowns. That's done before at the factory. So that's the prerequisite. We need to know what pipe it's going to. And generally, a property owner knows what pipes it is in their buildings, hopefully. Yeah, could you repeat the question? Yeah, sure, but the other hardware is way worse. Yeah. Yeah. Why it needs to be small? It depends on the space where it's to be installed. I mean, in this case, it's a perfect case, but it could also be a small locker in a bathroom, for example. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a global solution, for sure. Yeah, for sure. We're actually looking into doing it in Singapore as well. We have a collaboration with Suez Smart Solutions. So, yeah, it's coming on.
Thank you, thank you. You can always find Rickard after, during the mingle, if there's more questions, or just walk one floor up. That's where the office is. Fun fact, I actually work with these people, and the fact that they have been chosen as the startup of the month, there's no collusion here. Absolutely no collusion. Next up, Daniel.
Thank you.
And that's you, and you have a clicker. Nice.
Is it either one?
Maybe it's the other one.
I'll try this one.
They look the same for yes.
Okay, perfect. So, 5 minutes from when I press start here. Sorry, okay, there we go. So, lightning talk. 3D printing in 2019. I assume everybody here knows about 3D printing. So, some of the trends that we have seen starting last year and moving into this year. Then, perhaps you recognize the Gartner hype cycle. This is quite debated sometimes, and I don't agree with everything there, but for sure it has its sides. I have circled some of the items here which I think is interesting. Some of them are that we look at the plateau of productivity, which is actually where 3D printing is used, and it's being used as just standard business now, where it saves time or money. So 3D printing in service bureaus, just standard operations. Then we have 3D printed tooling, jigs and fixtures, which is used a lot in manufacturing, and also 3D printing in supply chain, which I think is further towards the right there. So going further than for trends, we have gone from something which has been technology-centric, which is now driven by applications. So instead of focusing on machines, we're focusing on a particular application, which I think is very, very good, because then you can actually be very much more clear about the requirements and develop solutions which can save time and money, and it's more right on target. So some of the application areas which we have seen and is still growing a lot is manufacturing, and this could be manufacturing aids such as jigs and fixtures, things to improve whatever your manufacturing line looks like. Another area is spare parts. This is one example of a spare part for a ship. It's a filter that is usually made out of metal, costing 1,600 euros. Now this is 3D printed in polymer for 30 euros of a cost. Then we also have industrial maintenance, where you can use a lot of things, which is a quite new area, but that I believe we will see a lot more things starting in 2019. Then we talk a lot about, or we hear a lot about the supply chain and what it means for manufacturing companies when they all of a sudden, instead of ordering all the parts they need from a long chain of suppliers and instead 3D printing them themselves or maybe just a few steps closer. So that's something to look out for. And these images are some examples of robotic rippers, industrial maintenance things, which I have been personally involved in. You can ask questions later if you want to. Yeah, polymer material developments. There's been a lot of talk last year about metals, but now also there's all the huge chemistry companies are really putting a lot of efforts into material developments for 3D printing, which also ties into the applications because they need a material that is tuned for a specific application. So all of these gigantic BASF, DuPont, DSM, and so on, they're all tailoring materials now in both powder form, filament form, and the resin form for the different 3D printing applications, technologies. Another trend is affordable metal 3D printing systems. I mean, before and still they are very, very expensive, costing many, many millions of Swedish crowns to install and learn how to use such a system. But now we're seeing systems that are costing maybe around 1 million or slightly more. They're actually a lot easier to use. So we'll see. They started to be sold last year, and now they're actually quite a big installed base. So that will for sure continue to grow. Then about maturing the entire usage of 3D printing. I mean, to use it for direct digital manufacturing also needs a lot of testing, standardization, post-processing, and technical readiness levels where it comes to those industries using that, like aerospace and so on. So that is maturing a lot now that we see. But there is still a lot of things that needs to be done here. So I really welcome ideas on how to, like startups to be active in these areas, materials or post-processing equipment, systems and processes. That's my cue. Thank you. Time for any questions or no? Sorry.
Actually, we don't. Oh, whoa, that was loud. We actually don't do questions generally, just for the lightning talks, just to keep us on time track. But Daniel, will you be around to answer some additional questions when we're done?
I will.
Great. Good.
Agenda. Is that me?
Yes, perfect. Do you feel ready? Yes. Okay. Fantastic. Building an open source router in 5 minutes. Thanks. Welcome.
Thanks a lot. So I have only 5 minutes. I don't think I will be able to build this router, especially if I have to hold the mic. But I brought one that is built, and I brought all the hardware that is needed to build one like this. And I'm here to tell you that you all should have open source routers, and you shouldn't rely on those proprietary routers that you buy in a shop. And if you have a D-Link or Asus or whatnot router that you have at home and you have to reboot it like every other day, maybe you should think about getting a hardware that you build yourself and you don't have to reboot it every day. And that's basically why we started this company. Me and my partner Natalia there, Women in Tech, we decided that there must be something better. We had a D-Link router at home, and we had to reboot it every few days because, well, some websites weren't loading and some websites were glitchy, and sometimes you were losing connection, and then you reboot it and internet is perfect. But we are software engineers by trade, and rebooting your router to fix a problem, it's not really a solution that we want to accept. So here is a software, or here's a router that you get a full access to the source code of the BIOS, and you get a full source code of the operating system running on it, and you get a schematics for the hardware. So you can really own the entire device from the bottom up. So I can show you all the components, and if you have questions within the 5 minutes, I can answer them. don't know if I can hold the mic and do this, but you get a, if you order from us, it's a company called techlager.se. You get a box similar to this one, where you get a chassis in a color that you choose. Wow. you get a motherboard with a 4-core CPU on it. Oh, thank you. It's a 4-core CPU, AMD, 1 gigahertz with 4 gigs of ECC RAM, and you get a bunch of extension slots here. You can mount several Wi-Fi cards. So we've heard that 802.11.x is coming out, and when you get a new standard, you don't have to throw out your old router. You can just get a new extension card, plug it in, and you have a new router. And you update your software on it. Let's see what I have here. Couple more things here. So you get a SSD of the size that you choose. This is 16 gigs SSD that you plug inside the chassis and the motherboard. You load any operating system that you like. We recommend either pfSense or OpenWRT or any other, Tomato. There's like hundreds of them. And if you choose so, we can do all of this for you. So when you order, you can get a pre-assembled router like this one, or you can get parts. And I encourage everyone to get parts because it's really fun to own your entire networking and build your router. You own it then. You feel proud. It's kind of fun. What else do I have here? Couple of cables, antennas. Well, it really depends what hardware you want to build and what do you want to afford and so on. But well, it starts at around 1,400 for all of those parts, and it can go up to the sky. But it's not so expensive in comparison to the routers that you buy in the shop. So you buy them for about 2,000 in the shop, right? About 6 watts, between 6 and 10. Under full load, it's 10. Regularly, it's 6 watts. So we have customers that have that use a battery for this, and they have yachts. So they sail and they have a router at their boat. So you can mount like a 4G modem into it, and then you have a internet through through your Tele2 or whatnot. Questions? I have time.
When can I get it?
Techlager.se.
Can you mesh them if you have multiple ones?
I haven't tried it, but of course you should be able to, yeah.
I'll ask the question because I mean one of the challenges with hardware is always the support organization you need to have in place for the customers that have problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
Seems like you're taking it one step further, creating even more problems with people failing to put it together. How do you cope with that?
I would imagine that in this room, everyone would be able to do it, and everyone would be able to load an operating system on it and upgrade it.
So we are the entire target group for you.
I imagine that I expected that there was 1 or 2 customers already here because during last 1.5 years when we were running this company, we sold thousands of those routers in Sweden. And we probably don't sell that many because people don't know that this is even possible. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. It was interesting. You mentioned the assumption that probably most people here would be able to put this together and load the operating system on it and so on. And I don't know that to be the case. I actually think that in general, I think one of the interesting things about this community is it is actually quite diverse, and it is actually people coming from many different backgrounds. So some people are very kind of technically savvy, some people are very into software, hardware, but others are into design and business. So it's actually hard to generalize exactly who's here. We actually have, before you leave, a quick survey or kind of audience feedback. session. I'll put it on the screen, but not quite yet, maybe in 10 minutes or so. We have first Oscar, I think. Where are you? Yes. There you are. I think you're our last lightning talk. Was there anyone who wanted to come up after Oscar and share something? Does she want to come join you or after you?
Yeah,
join you.
I have
a colleague.
Co-pilot.
Yes. Okay, great. Please. Okay, so welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm Oskar Jonsson, and I work at the Swedish Government Agency for Participation. We work with the disability politics of Sweden, and in our mission is to promote innovation. And I also worked at the Swedish Employment Service Innovation Center, where we visualize the future job market, and that includes robotics, drones. One of the luggage is following around you. We bought one of those, but we haven't had it delivered yet. So that was a year ago, crowdfunded. Some warning here. But also been part of initiating a network called Innovation Pioneers 11 years ago with Veriday that is here today, and IKEA and some other organizations that work with innovation. And one of the things we do is that we now recently started to partner up with non-profit organizations and writing agreements with them, and Engineers Without Border, Open Hack, Coding for Humanities, and of course assistive technology at KTH that works a lot with hardware, and I will give the mic to.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm here for assistive technology. We are a non-profit student organization, and we are involved in different projects. I don't know if we can scroll a little bit up. Can we scroll a little bit up? Okay, that's okay. So we had these 3 projects. This one is finished, but these 2 are ongoing. And in particular, I'm coordinating the stress sensor project. And here comes the hardware part. Because what we do, basically, we want to design a sensor and pair it up with a software interface and being able to predict the stress in order to have people with acquired brain damage to go back to work. And yeah, right now we have this sensor here, which is just a prototype and comes from Empatica, and we are making some tests with it. And so yeah, that's what we are doing, and the mission is to help people with disability using our technological skills gained from university, because we are just students. Yeah, I think that's it.
I can fill in. You had also an app. Yeah, that shows.
Yeah, we are like the work we have done last year is develop an app that uses artificial intelligence in order to predict stress level for the user. So yeah, that's what we have done.
And also the other projects have made prosthetic arm and hand for a guy in Honduras that now can work again with his arm that is 3D printed, that you previous project group made, and now they're are into printing feet. And this is a challenge because you have to there are different stress and weight and so on, and you have to work with different materials that are close to the body. And this is a young woman or child at 14 years old that is growing, and she had to wait like 4 or 5 months to get a new prosthesis foot that is molded in silicone. And why not print it in a 3D printer with mixed materials, so it's hard where the body is soft and soft where the body is hard to make a better fit. So this is a great challenge that some other project group also do. I'm so proud of you guys. And hopefully we can shine as being innovative within the public sector. Thank you very much.
Great. We did manage to get another lightning talk. So Conrad, you want to come up and share a bit more? Sure. Great. So welcome back to the stage, but this time for a little bit longer, and you're going to have some visual aid.
Exactly. I'm not sure I did a very good job last time. It was kind of on the fly. Of course, we launched the boat, but it's been a lot of work behind it. The project started in 2000, or actually in 1996, I trademarked X-Shore. And in 2012, we had the idea of making boats electric. So this is a 100% electric boat, and I start with showing the teaser.
What is the power of silence? The power of silence is believing something different can be achieved. The power of silence is placing value on what you hold most important. With this in mind, X-Shore has developed a vehicle we believe can truly make a difference. A different experience, a different design, a different future. By combining electric power and technology, we have created the first fossil fuel-free crafts made in Sweden.
So, yeah, thank you. It's been a lot of work, and I'm so glad to coming from Sweden, because we had really good help from a lot of other companies. One of them being Storebro, which is really nice boat builders, probably one of the best in the world. Another one that we worked on with electric, you know, or with water, now I'm not finding the word, but the density is 784 times higher than air. So making a boat forward in the water is like driving a car in 45 to 50 degrees uphill. So it's much more tension on the inverter, batteries, and the engine. So it took us a lot, and we started to concentrate on the hydrodynamics, making a boat that is 50% less drag compared to a traditional boat. And we wanted to make a boat that was for modern life, that was quick, steady, and of course safe. So that's why you have the big nose for high waters. So this boat tops at 40 knots. You can go over 2 hours in 25 knots, which is like pretty good speed, and a total of 100 nautical miles, which equals around 170 kilometers. So it is full on high tech, and we're building our own software as well to even improve these numbers. But yeah, Sweden rules. Any questions?
How much is the self-driving option? And is there a
Sorry? Well, that is actually something that we talked, we had a couple of meetings with Google and some other companies, because there is some things that is easier and some things that is a bit harder. But that is something that we are working on. Actually, the whole idea, right now it's a luxury segment because the technology is very expensive. But our idea for the future is to get more people on the sea, giving you a chance to become one with nature. That's why we're choosing these materials and these colors and be all silent. But another thing is also to save the oceans by not putting out all the fossils due to the density that takes much more energy, as well as being really no sound to the underwater where a lot of animals lives. How much it is? Right now, 249,000 euros. plus VAT. So around 3 million. It does have Wi-Fi, and we should talk about that. Actually, we have a... Yes, we should.
How do you charge it, and how long time does it take?
Well, it's easier to find a place where you can stick... Ja, nu tappar jag ordet, men där du har en stickpropp, a place where you can charge anything will make it charge, just like a car. So we're using the same system. So it's between 9 and 18 hours if you are not, if you're just having like a normal 220, or if you make a fast charger, you do 80% in 1 hour instead of half an hour, because we have 120 kilowatts. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Great and unusual and awesome to have 2 extra lightning talks kind of in the spur of a moment. Very nice. I didn't actually mean to put this particular slide on. I'm not totally sure why I did it, but now that it's on, we do stream on YouTube. So if you can't make it some other time, you can still watch. And we put all the videos both on YouTube and SthlmHW.se. So if you want to catch up on this or previous events, you can do it there. There was 2 things I wanted to do before we say goodbye, or at least that we end kind of the formal part of it, and then you're more than welcome to hang out and talk to each other. Audience feedback. So community feedback. So if you could please go to this URL, menti.com, and type in this pin or that number. So this is one of the maybe few times where I really encourage you to pull out your smartphone, and even though I'm talking, and pull in that URL and give a bit of feedback. There's a few more questions coming, so just leave the browser open. When we go to the next question, it'll update in your on your phone. This is some information that we use to understand who's coming, what are you interested in, what kind of backgrounds do you have, what might your ideas be for future topics. It looks like there's 30 something that's responded, and maybe there's 40 or 50 something people left, so 44, 45. Cool, when we hit 50 we go, okay. So 50, this is actually pretty common. Just for those of you who are new, it's quite common, about a third in general, about a third or half are actually here for the first time. And then there's a few people who have been here a lot. So more than 10 times, and we've only done 20 events, so that's impressive. Thanks. Thanks for staying engaged. Maybe if you could share some ideas on themes or topics that you think would be interesting for the future. This is January, so not surprisingly, we are thinking about what to do for 2019, both for the first half and the second half. So getting your input on what you're interested in would be useful for us. Doesn't necessarily mean that that topic will come up, but it'll influence the direction of things. If you have specific people that you really think we should try to get here, feel free to post those. Wow, we have even more, so 58. That's great. Thanks a lot. Which ones were the most fun so far? AI for Dummies. Other suggestions for most fun? We should get, okay. Okay, and patents and intellectual property. One of the suggestions earlier tonight as well. Cool, thanks. Then we have 2 questions that helps us try to narrow in on diversity, inclusion, and who are actually attending our meetups. This is something we've been discussing a lot, and we haven't quite really figured out a way to really address it in an organized way, like how essentially to ensure that we both speak to a diverse crowd of people, and that we also include a broad group of people when we're here. One of the things I often wonder when I look at the responses being Sweden, I always wonder, like, how do I learn more about that? Like all the different parts of Sweden, like the different ways that you can be brought up in Sweden and so on. Maybe we'll find a way to kind of narrow in on that later. Okay, one more along those lines. Gender identity or identities. It's not, you can't fill in text for yourself, so it's going to be less fun, probably. Yeah, so we're up to about like 50 respondents, so that's probably a pretty fair representation of what's here. Okay, 2 more. Did I mess it up? Yep, a little bit. Okay, 2 more. One is just to get a sense of, both for us to get a sense, but also for you to get a sense of each other. Like, who are here? Like, what do people do during the day, the types of people who come here? And overall, I love it, and I think now we've done, this is the 20th. My impression generally is that people who come here do lots of different types of things during the days. It's generally quite a broad group of people. That's also about 50. People responded. We'll take the results and also we'll share them out on the website. So you can look at them as well if you're interested in learning more about the makeup of the people who are here. And the last one, very specifically about today. What do you feel is working really well that you'd like to express that you think is great and we should continue to do? And what are the things that we should reconsider and do differently? Both in terms of like what the content is, what the format is. Now we recently started to encourage you to get tickets and even pay. So that's changes. So give us some feedback. 1, 2, 3, 4 more crisps. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, a big change since all our previous meetups, at least the last 2 seasons, we have offered up food. Wraps in general, and we don't now. So that's, of course, really something we're curious to figure out if that's important. Yeah, group pre-booking for food, yeah. So did we finish the non-alcoholic beer and not the alcoholic one? Yeah. That's really my fault. I'm just too Danish, too much alcohol, not enough non-alcoholic. Non-alcoholic? Sorry. We'll pull it out now. Maybe you could pull it out, Marek, and then if anyone wants to consume it before you go, you'd be more than welcome. Okay, then I was going to finish on... here was the slide I was going to finish on. Thank you. And also, we don't have the websites up, but this is what looks like will be the next 2 activities for Stockholm Hardware. Most likely Monday, March 4th. So in a bit more than a month, it'll be the next meetup We haven't decided on the theme yet. If you go to meetup.com and just search Stockholm Hardware, that's where you can sign up for the mail list. And then fairly shortly after, we'll have a hands-on workshop. Let's see if I can click this thing. Yes, awesome. A hands-on workshop. So we have tried to do hands-on workshops every 3 months, so once a quarter now. We've done 2. This will be the 3rd. The idea is that we, as a volunteering group, will run these at cost. So hopefully you'll find good hardware, exciting instructors, and have fun at the same time. So the next one, I think this was Thursday in March, the 2nd, I forget. Do I still have it? I don't have it. There it is, March 14th, most likely. And Noodle is an open source platform for prototyping with IoT. I think it's primarily maintained by Top Design, an agency based in Malmö. So one of their guys is going to come run the workshop. What we've done in the past, and we'll do again, is when you buy a ticket, if you buy a ticket, what you get is some hardware. So generally, we can generally run the workshops for the cost of the hardware, and then the instructions and so on is free. So it'll be some Arduino stuff, Adafruit Feather with some built-in Wi-Fi, then with a bit of input like an accelerometer or magnometer, and some way to do some output with the Pixel, for example. And then the tool is really like a visual programming language for IoT that helps you build prototypes. Should be pretty fun. Just to give you a sense of it, if I can figure out how to click it. Yes, good. Ticket prices roughly looks like this. So about $850, maybe, yeah, about $850. And then we'll of course send this out on email, but if you then type in Stockholm Hardware, because you know about that, then the prices should go down with about $250. So a regular ticket price should be $600. So for that $600, you get to be here for the night, you get the hardware with you when you leave, and you get somebody to tell you how to use this Noodle tool. So if you're interested in that, come join us in March. And if not, then come join us in March, earlier in March, for the meetup. With that, thanks a lot for today. See you soon. One more thing. One more thing. Maybe some of you remember in the beginning when I was talking about the schedule and I was saying that Andreas, some of you were here this early. If you were here like 5:30, I was mentioning how Andreas was going to do a makerspace tour before 6 and then another one after the event. And then I forgot that Andreas is still going to do the makerspace tour. So everybody, including you guys in the back, somebody who's like halfway to the back, could you tell all the people in the back? Just tap them on the shoulder. Yes, awesome. Powell, could you tell these people also? Awesome. Okay. Nice, awesome. I just wanted to say that Andreas, sorry, come on, give me a sec. Just 30 seconds. 30 seconds, even for you guys in the back. Come on. Awesome. Andreas spends time with Stockholm Makerspace, and Andreas has volunteered to give a tour for those interested of Stockholm Makerspace. So if you're interested, come with Andreas for 15-20 minutes to go through a tour of Stockholm Makerspace, which is in the basement. They have amazing tools for everything from electronics, sewing, 3D printing, welding, woodwork. It is, I mean, it actually is kind of mind-blowing. Anyway, if you would like to get a tour, then come over and walk with Andreas downstairs. That was it. Sorry for interrupting. Mark, close the door. Close the door. Okay, so this is the amazing time of night where everybody else have left. For some reason, you didn't leave, and now it's too late because now that you have enjoyed yourself for such a long time, and Martin, you're going to help us too. Yes, even Martin is going to help us, and Daniel, and Håkan. Now, you're the people who stayed for the longest. You're the most passionate, the ones who's been the most inspired. You're the ones who will help us move the chairs to the end of the room, because guess what? We are all volunteers, and before we leave tonight, we have to put the chairs back. So pretty please, follow Marek's lead. And Marek, can you show us where these chairs are going to go? Actually, all we have to do before we leave is put the chairs back and move the beer bottles. So if you could pretty please help us with that, that will be great. Thank you.